All right, hello, Adrian Croom, and welcome to AuroraCast. Finally, mate. After all our conversations around this episode 5, season 2, I finally get you in. How you doing, man?
What's up, Michael? I'm
All the
doing good.
way, all the way comes to Austin, Texas, huh?
All the way from Austin on ACL Fest weekend, first weekend of ACL Fest. So
Is that a big thing over
there you
there?
go. Yeah, it's annual music festival out in the park down here in Austin. So big music. It's actually 2 weekends now. It used to just be a weekend festival in the park, and now it's 2 weekends long.
That
So
sounds fun to me, man. Are you gonna go to it at
pretty
all, or
fun.
you flat out?
I've actually in 2019 I played one. I DJ'd for Katie Rain, who was playing that festival. So I did get to see that side of it from the artist side. And I did go. The first one I went to, because I grew up in Austin. The first one I went to was maybe like 2004 or five. The first one
Amazing.
I went to, a long time ago.
And that's the thing, because we've got we do festivals in like Hyde Park over here in London, which is a big old park, right? But most parks in the UK, they can be a bit small, So I'm envisioning this kind of
Yeah, that's what
massive park in Austin,
it
yeah, like
is. They put like 7 stages out
right,
in it,
yeah.
so it covers a lot of ground. Yeah.
How many people do you reckon it brings?
Oh man, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's a ton.
It's a big old thing. This big old thing.
Yeah, because it's like 7 packed stages, of bands overlapping each other. So it's kind of strange because you can hear, the vibrations of the stage next to the stage that you're at, but it's so loud anyway at your stage. It's chaos. It's chaos. Music
Um,
chaos.
music. I love music chaos, though, man. It's the world we live in. So, dude, for people who, anyone who's followed the website, I've already put a blog up of I'm working with Adrian. We're collaborators. We're both composers,
Yeah.
right? But you
Yep.
started.
Oh yeah.
What's your journey, man? Did you start with bands, or where did you? I'm curious, man. I don't even know if we probably have had this conversation, but
Yeah, we probably have. Yeah, I probably, I guess really music for me started my mom was a folk singer, so it was just naturally in the household. Well, there's a piano in the household, but I wasn't like classically trained or like forced to do lessons, maybe like some younger kids, but it was there. So I think that's also how I think of how I really got into composing or writing music, was able to have a piano there to experiment on without having to learn maybe other composers' work, whether it's Beethoven or anybody who's learning piano who's classically trained. But I guess also when you're learning and you're playing the piano from that in that manner, I definitely started kind of creating the wrong form with my technique. Crossing your thumb under.
yeah,
Like I tried to relearn stuff as I got older. But yeah, I started just from having instruments in the house, and then by middle school, I did play in the percussion section at the middle school I went, Lamar Middle School in Austin, and it was both the schools I went to were public schools in Austin, but also fine arts, like an emphasis on fine arts. So I was always into arts from a young age.
amazing.
It was like doing theater. I did theater in high school. Just being a part of as much stuff as I could. But yeah, I played in the band, the school band, in middle school. I was playing football too, so it was funny thinking of like marching band, like having a big bass drum, that I'm beating on, and then like in my pads, and then playing football. That was fun. But yeah, around when I was in high school is where it really shifted into. I didn't play in the school band in high school, but I started like, I guess middle school I was playing still like drums because I was in percussion. I had started getting a trap set, where you start piecing it together. It wasn't like a full drum set. It was like I got the kick drum, and
A
I
month
think I
later, I get a snare, and then I've got a floor tom.
I
I've got a
still,
ride now. Okay,
yeah, it was a real ruggedy set at first. It was just like the shells, and then I definitely got in. That was my first instrument I would say before piano. Actually, piano I was just like have fun playing it, but percussion from like learning it in school to then like playing drums in like garage band style, like with your friends. And I did that throughout high school, like trying to, playing in bands with friends, and eventually led into playing shows in Austin, because Austin just has a big emphasis on like a ton of music venues. So it has I think it's called the live music capital of the world. I don't know if they name that themselves or how that's determined, but it's a lot of music venues. So you're kind of thrust into it. Where I grew up, it's like everybody I know was like either sound, doing live sound at a venue, or working at the venue, or a bartender at the venue, or everybody's in the venues here. So music venues.
So it seems, I mean, it seems that kind of, from kind of obviously I haven't been over to Austin. My father has. He did some business over in Dallas.
Cool.
And he's been to Austin, and he said to me, Mike, if you go to Austin, he said you're definitely gonna find some comedy clubs. You're gonna find some great food. You're gonna find a ton of music. You're gonna find a bunch of really outgoing people.
Yeah.
He said to me, really, I mean, because I came over, I did New York, I did LA and San Fran. And he kind of said, "What? You completely just flew over Texas? What's wrong with you?" Kind of thing. And I get that kind of vibe, from people, from speaking to you and just sort of like studying sort of Texas itself. It does seem like Austin's almost got that hub, as you've described. Someone's either, if you're not acting or playing in the band, you're bartending in the bar, right?
Yeah.
In the venue, everyone's kind of involved in this sort of animal that's Austin entertainment. Yeah.
I should stress that most are doing both. As a musician, you got to bartend also, or whatever it is.
You bartended between sets, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. I'm still bartending as a side hustle. It'll never stop.
We're all doing things, man. We're all doing things. But I like that. I think that's cool because, I mean, is there... So obviously you started saying, obviously, like, your mother was singing, and you had the piano in the house, so you noodled around with the piano. Obviously you heard music was present, and then you took on percussion. But did you find that as you, I suppose, were getting older and you were out then, say, playing in the school bands, or then playing at the festivals, is that kind of networking present in Austin? Like if you're bartending, say, there's that opportunity maybe to meet someone, to get work.
Like, especially if it's just, hey, you want to get really good at your instruments or just play music. I think it was 1,000% that. It was just everybody wants to do that, and it couldn't be easier. But the industry was a bit not quite set up like that. It wasn't like when I would go to New York or LA, and how structured and prepared they were to have success for music, or musicians actually you don't have to do a side hustle. You're doing music as your job and your main source of income. I think other cities were definitely way further beyond Austin. Probably still are, because Austin has South by Southwest, which is actually the biggest music festival before like ACL Fest, I guess. Like in the city, it's the biggest festival here. It's known on the map, I think, most people have heard of South by Southwest. Have you heard of that festival?
I have, yeah. I've heard of that one, but I feel like it's almost strange. You got the battle of, like, obviously whenever anyone in the UK right now who talks about, say, like US music festivals, they're just all talking about Coachella. Oh, we got to go to Coachella in which is obviously in Hollywood, right? When we're in California, but they seem to,
Coachella is probably the biggest, right? That would be the number one biggest.
Is that the same over there? Is that regarded as like the biggest in the States?
Coachella, and then I guess some of those electronic festivals are pretty gigantic.
But then New Orleans has got a scene, right? There's music there. There's, it's kind of.
Jazz
fests, and there's always seems to be a.
I've still not been to Jazz Fest, and I've heard it's the best. Absolutely.
I would like to go. I mean, I did when I was in New York. I kind of did a little bit of the sort of, it's a weird thing, right? Because I thought, right, we got to go and listen to some jazz, So I went to BB King's, and right in the center there. I thought, okay, that's quite cool, you know what I mean? And I thought, I got to find like a dive bar jazz sort of place, and they were the best places, man. Like you met some of the best places, people there. And I was with my friend. I said, look, let's go on a bit of a tour. And we got chatting to some people in the bar. And I said, I'm going to go to Blue Note, which is like I suppose a commercial, perhaps more commercial than sort of BB King's, and they're all going rubbish. Don't go to Blue Note, stay in the dive bars kind of thing. And I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, well, all right, I hear you. I'm not going to disrespect you, but I'm still going to go because I want to check it out,
Yeah, you gotta do you.
Man, we paid like, I think it was something like $35 to get into Blue Note, and then there were no seats, and then I think we paid like $10 for a bottle of IPA or some beer, kind of thing.
Sounds about right.
And then we left. We just went straight back down to the dive bar jazz place. And as we walked in, so I've just paid like $50 basically for a beer, and heard about, I don't know, 100 bars of music, and as we walked back into the dive bar, they're just all pointing and laughing at us. They're like, oh, you didn't last long at Blue Note then, kind of thing. So it's cool, but I feel like, and then I have similar stories from LA, hanging out in in the Rainbow and the whiskey, and that was more kind of rock and metal that we were doing there, and a bit of grunge over there as well. So it's almost like I feel like you can jump around different states and you're gonna get different sort of almost focused styles of music, which is really cool.
Different cultures for sure, per state or even per city, like it's
100%. Yeah. 100%. It's really cool, man. I love it. So what, bringing it back round to kind of, how did you first start getting into this whole kind of like, I want to write sync music, or I want to start trying to get my music onto a film, or I want to write for film. How did that kind of come about?
So definitely something I thought about when I was in college. I was doing an Access television program that was just an extracurricular group you could do at Colorado State, is where I went to college. And I was doing the Access program called Full Tilt, which was kind of a comedy skit thing. But I was really interested because of the gear I had access to if I was a part of that. Like they had cameras, video cameras, they had editing bays. And I wanted to already, I was already making beats at this point. I got into beat production about 16, where I was using a 4-track to taking synthesizers and tracking them with drum machines going into one track, and then playing. I was trying to play loops. I was playing, like trying to create what I was hearing, on the radio or any, electronic stuff, but trying to do it, not really knowing what you're doing, but using tapes. That was kind of where it all started. But then, into college, I was able to take that weird form of music that I was creating, even on tapes, and then get them digitally into the computer at the university. And that's where I was first seeing like motion, music or stuff. My music I was making put to motion picture, moving, videos that we were creating. That was fun. That's what really got me into it. And then, obviously, to fast forward, like, there's a lot in between. I just always, from what you're saying, networking, at whatever point I had created 7 albums at one point. At this point, I'm into the computer world. I'm not on tapes, right? I think I crossed over into computer world like 2001 is when I bought my first Mac. I actually started in the Mac world, so I was on an Apple in 2001, which my joke with that is like I should have just put that money into Apple stock.
You could have bought a few Macs, yeah.
If I would have just not bought the Mac computer and be like, oh, this is smart right here, what they're doing here. No, but I got into Apple pretty early, even. I feel like, there's people who are on Apple probably, it was 80s is when it really came out. But for me, that was the first DAW. I got it, Pro Tools was the first DAW, and I put it on the Mac, and that was right out of the gate. It was like here's my computer, and Pro Tools was the first thing I was putting on it. So I was a kid in Candyland. I guess I was like 21 at that point. from there, I just started. I used Reason was my first actual beat making software. I was learning Pro Tools, but I was using Pro Tools to like record vocals and live stuff, and using Reason to make beats. And then it's not a lot different when I fast forward to now. It's just like now it's like Pro Tools mainly for all the film stuff I do. And Ableton will be for my beats instead of Reason. And I'll still do beat production now though in Pro Tools. So I love Pro Tools. You know that. That's where we're working.
Well, that's how we kind of got talking, right? It was our love of writing and because it's a weird world. It's it's even at the university now. It's kind of all like there's still this kind of echo of the lie, I call it. The Pro Tools can't do MIDI, and it's like it can 100% do MIDI.
Oh
I mean it's I mean all the stuff the collab we're doing, which unfortunately I don't think anyone's going to hear unless it ends up on some sort of trailer or because it's sorry about that, but
in our terms that we'll be signing, it'll say no,
you can't release it. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We'll put out some comments in the future, but I said that was us. That one there, kind of thing. But like it's I think it's a weird thing. I like that you sort of started with almost like the 4-track, 8-track like approach. So you had that kind of analog.
Well, like intro. It was like when I was doing that, like it was. I guess I would kind of scatterbrain on it, but it was like I would perform on the piano. I was performing loops. I mean, that's what I was doing. I wasn't like creating some fascinating 3-minute performance on the piano or the synth. I was playing it like a loop for 3 minutes so that it was sounding to me more like what I was hearing, but then obviously in the computer world, it's like, oh, it's a loop. Just play it once and copy and paste or whatever,
But I think it's a weird thing though, right? Because when you're kind of, I feel like when you're almost restricted by the technology like that, you've got 4 tracks, you're recording a piano loop, so you're recording be a piano, a synthesizer, or a vocal line. You're kind of almost like there's this never-ending conversation that I keep having around kind of the digital world versus the analog world in that respect. Is that we're so free now, and we've got thousands and thousands of sounds. Sometimes which you'd think would be almost like liberating and like, right, I'm going to write 10,000 tracks. So many. But it's like sometimes I sit there and I'm like, I spend 3 hours like loading snares, and just which snare? Oh, that one sounds a bit better. Okay, cool. Let's try a different library. Okay, what about BFD? Oh, let's try. You know what? Let's go into Logic. Let's launch Logic and try Logic's drummer. Let's go back to Pro Tools. I mean, and whereas when you started, you would have just had a snare which you bought from the music store, and you're sitting there tuning it and hitting it, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that. Did you find, I suppose, when you went to say the DAW, or so you got Pro Tools first, early DAWs, 2001, right? So Pro Tools kind of in a way took over in around 91. That was when Pro Tools kind of I think it officially started replacing tape in the studio.
Yeah. There was I mean, I'm all over the place, I know, but there was I think it's called Voyetra Pro, Voyetra VOYE. There was a DAW that my uncle had.
Okay.
That was before I don't know if it was before Pro Tools, but it was the first one that I had played with from a DAW standpoint. But that was using MIDI, which is interesting too, right? Like using MIDI cables to hook into the DAW or his interface at the time. That was so. Wow.
So was your uncle? So your uncle was So your uncle was musical as well. Then he was doing music. Was he?
He actually studied composition at North Texas, which is known as like a music school in this area for sure. My cousin, his son, went the same path.
Amazing.
I don't know if he did I think he did composition too, but he's still writing insane drum. What kind of the project we're doing now? Big Perk. That's what my cousin, he plays like double mallet marimbas, with 2 knots in each hand. But he's a percussion guru. Yeah. But but yeah, so that side, yeah, there's always been my aunt sings in the Dallas Opera. So she
Right.
just finished doing like a 30-year career of Dallas Opera. So there's always been an emphasis amongst the entire family, for music.
There's been some sort of music, and obviously some of you still, still practitioners, still doing it, which is great.
But something like, amongst everything we're talking about, like, I think it's muscle memory, right? Like if it were just in the world we live in where it's just picking all these different sounds or wherever we're looking, there's not a lot of muscle memory practice. When we're just having to record a loop for 3 minutes, in that example, I definitely think when I was using the tapes and I was playing the loop over and over, that's just like practicing your scales. If you think about it, like going up and down on a piano, practicing scales. And I think no matter what your instrument is or what you're doing, the muscle memory practice from a musician standpoint, there's nothing, even if you're in a garage band, especially if you're in a garage band, like most of them don't, we weren't reading sheet music. It's just like, let's jam, let's write something, or we're writing parts and we're writing a song without sheet music, right? So you're just using muscle memory and you're just then practicing it over and over. And I know like from bands, because I had some friends that got picked up by big record labels and did the touring thing and went the whole distance. But they would practice 3 times a week. That's
just on it.
And it was just like a machine. It was mechanical, methodical with how they would practice. And
but I think it's a weird thing though. There's this whole kind of, because there's I know loads of musos who couldn't tell you what chord they're playing or couldn't really identify an interval or those sorts of things, but they're out, like you say, they're out there playing. And I think it's an interesting kind of conversation, because I was similar to you. Like I started learning guitar really, but I never knew really what chord I was playing or what key I was in or anything like that. I could read guitar tabs, so I'd learn tabs, play the music, and then I'd go to band rehearsal 1-2 times a week, say, and we'd thrash it out together. And I lived with the main songwriter, so he'd be kind of playing on the acoustic guitar.
We need to get some of your guitar on this.
100%, man. So it's kind of it's weird. And I think I'm paraphrasing Hans Zimmer, but he regards like Cubase as an instrument. He will say that you play, and I think there is an element to that, because trying to kind of work with, when I talk to say like performance students or production students, obviously the performance students, their main focus, unless they're kind of like a producer, say, then they're playing like the DJ and they're doing a performance like that, their focus tends to be heavily in the instrument that they're playing. Whereas you find the production guys, they might play a bit of guitar, a bit of piano. I mean, we all play a bit of keys, right? Anyone working in the door plays a bit of keys because we play in our chords and we do our things. But I almost feel there's a space for, like, I'm kind of reverting, right? Like, so I came from almost like the band side of things to then into production, and I just wanted to do film, like,
like garage band,
exactly, from basically just mucking around with friends, we did fairly okay, to that kind of fizzled out. Everyone kind of went in their own different directions. I mean, I
playing
definitely
venues and touring.
Touring a bit. We played in Europe a little bit, a couple of venues, like, and we definitely toured around London loads. Awesome. And so we did, I probably played like 60, 70 gigs kind of thing during like a 4 or 5 year period kind of thing, which is quite a lot. But now I'm getting into sort of, I want to buy a couple of synthesizers and I want to get like a digital. I'm going to end up with like some Euro rack or something on my wall, or like, or I want to get like this. I've had this sort of semi-weighted M audio thing. It's just crap. I want to get a digital weighted full piano and actually go back and really, like, I do understand music theory, but I want to really understand it. I want to really I want to be able to read the sheet properly, because I read the MIDI roll, I read the piano roll. I read that. I can read that, no problem. I'm
100% with you on that. Like, I'm through the educational stuff where I'm teaching. They've asked me to teach a music theory class, and I feel comfortable from my being ear trained, but music theory is the total different part of the game. But I've just dug back in to take the challenge on and started studying it to be ahead of what I'm teaching, right? And it's good for me. That's why for you, like taking on, obviously us as composers, you don't really have to know music theory like what people would imagine. Like you don't have to have gone to school for music theory, but the people I've worked with, like Carl Fields, like they know music theory really well.
But
and some of the best people I've worked with, it's like, why wouldn't we want to know music?
Well, yeah, right? I think the difference is when you learn to really play, you play music in lots of different keys. You play music in other people's music. You learn, your instrument inside out. So you can, if you're like, if you're going to be a performer and you can sight read, like I'll kind of stick to like kind of 3 keys.
Right.
So I find, and so look at Zimmer. He's mostly in D minor, or A minor.
Yeah, I know he said it's because I just remember the soundbite from somewhere.
Because the cello or the bass
down and land on his D, right?
Yeah,
so you can land on that D.
It's the last note in the basses before it starts sounding a bit crazy and get a bit too towards the dusty end, which makes sense. But also,
it's like what Hans Zimmer owns the low D now. Come on,
yeah, it's exactly. So it's kind of like, and I think that's the difference. I think whereas if you were like a classically trained composer, you would have gone through, done all your grades, you would have learned all the piano, you could play Bach, you could play Mozart, you could play Vivaldi, you could play everything, right? You'd Chopin, wherever, right?
If you go, well, I don't want to cut you off, but if you lose the interest, like if you know it all like that, if the interest in the creative side of like then going to write something like
precisely that, and I've known people who could play me anything, but they can't write anything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like a I think part of it's I don't know whether you agree with this, but I think part of it's the technology, right? We can get a fairly decent sound in orchestra, and as long as we know a few keys, right, and we understand we understand a melody,
yeah,
we understand, we understand rhythms and time signature and tempo. You can write a track.
Staccato. We gotta learn. I mean, it gets.
Yeah, but it's a weird world. It's a strange world, Like I think the term composer, someone would expect you to be able to play every damn key, know everything, know the whole thing. It's like, well, it's changed a bit. I know a lot about timbre. I know a lot about instrumentation. I know a lot about orchestration. I know what textures fit together, which I think is what a composer does. But yeah, I've found that I've gravitated towards only a couple of keys, and that's a problem. I want to change that. I want to learn a hell of a lot more. So when I move again, I'm definitely going to put like a digital, just a secondhand cheap digital piano that's fully weighted, and I'm going to go back to basics and kind of almost use that as playtime. And then when I go back into the studio to write, I'm going to consciously be like, right, I'm going to be writing this in F sharp minor.
So that's an amazing technique too. Because I was doing something very similar. I can't remember the 2 keys they were, but it was something very similar. Because the engineer I was working with at the time, he'd always call me out on that. Right? He's like, "You write all these," and I'm like, I'm not even thinking that because it's the way I'm writing on the piano. Right? It was just how it was. These are, I guess, the scales I knew. Right? Or they're the most comfortable for me to play in. But what's interesting is like if you think, okay, there's Western musical scale is 7 main notes, right? On a piano, we have technically 12 between till you get to the 13th, which is the octave up. So if we have 7 main notes, that to me, like in a weird way, when I really started diversifying the different keys I was playing in or writing music in, I would actually put on whatever song from wherever, right, on YouTube or whatever. I'd listen to it, right, and I would just ear training, try to find what the scale is, not even knowing maybe what the tonic, what's the root note, and what is how even being able to find. I now can find what the key is of the song by listening to it and playing with it and looking up an image on Google of the piano scale and be like, oh, that was it, if I can determine the root note. But what I wanted to say is just being able to take like listening to something and finding like, oh, to me it was like, oh, they're using these notes and they're not using these notes, right? But really it was finding the 7 notes that are whatever the key was that the song's in, right? And then creating my own song using just those notes, like a video game. It's like, now I'm just gonna, when I'm thinking of the piano, that's what I keep looking at right here. I'm looking at my piano. You can't see it right in front of me, but it's like, if I'm playing the piano, I want to, I'll listen to it, and now, like a game, a video game, I can play something inside that, and it really started getting more fun for me, just diversifying the types of scales I'm using, right?
100%, 100%, and I think definitely, but I think it's that kind of experimentation. I think maybe some kids with their parents, because your mum could have done that. Adrian, you're going to sit at the piano for 2 hours a day.
Right. Yeah.
I want you to learn all the stuff, and you might have done that, but then it might have killed like some people, when we talk about sort of, like I say, sound design, for instance, like I think for me and you, especially in the project we're doing now, it's like, oh, how have you put that right? Somewhere people ask me, how did you do that riser? How have you? It's like, well, I can just hear it. I can just hear that. I know I'm going to pitch this instrument or pitch this sound or even time stretch this piece of audio.
Right.
And it's kind of, I'm naturally painting with sound, but it's still within the harmonic series. It's still.
But I think even where you're going and I totally agree with this, is that it's just, we're having fun.
Yeah.
That sounds fun, right? That's like, that is, and that's how I think of music to me. And that's probably I know it sounds, a bit, not a deep concept, but it's just like having fun with music is important.
Playing the piano, right? Playing the guitar.
Does it feel like it's
plays in there,
hardcore work? I don't know if it's maybe for people that like, they feel like it's hardcore work, or it's just if it's a creative, and it's art,
100%. 100%. But I think to bridge these worlds, because it's a problem I've been trying to work out, that whole the music producer or the production, guy, which is what me and you do, right? Versus the kind of like the concert pianist, I envy those guys 100%. I don't want to be a concert pianist. I'm no interest in doing it, right? But but I do think if I could learn to play, it will help me as I progress with my orchestration. It will help me in terms of when I say play, it's like I can play, but it's like
you write with the keyboard though too, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. So I play my keys, but it's I don't sit at a piano and kind of like play a bit. But
you're playing kind of by ear also, right? Are you just playing, or is it more?
I think it depends. When I'm in my kind of preferred safe space keys, then I'm playing. I know where I'm going, right? But it's like if suddenly I'm like, hang about, why have I got a bum note there? Oh, okay. This is a new ground. Okay, let's go here. So I'm trying to force myself out of those kind of keys. It sounds really weird to be saying this, but I'm trying to. I feel like I've kind of got stuck in my go-to places, and that mainly was because the film projects I had were living in that kind of horror-y, scary, murderous type film. So a lot of it was all kind of minor keys and very kind of sparse piano and strings, and I just
dissonance.
Got typecast in that, I suppose. So I'm trying to almost come at it from, well, I don't want to do a horror thing anymore, really. I want to try and, let's just write something in C major. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just actually write something.
The happiest key.
Yeah, let's write some happy stuff,
Let's write some happy.
Yeah, man.
I love some major. Yeah, I do I like. I think the songs I've written in major, happier stuff. What was personal albums? Because like you, I've been all mainly horror genre for film stuff. So tension and.
The last film you scored, right, I was helping you with that. That was horror, man. That was very tense. I mean, it was excellent, very tense.
So that was Realm of Shadows. That was Thunder Night. That's a good group. So they have a series of different films coming out, and they have me kind of tagged to compose those. So I'm excited.
It's really cool. It's really cool. But that's another element of the whole, and again, it ties me. I kind of got a bit of a narrative here, but I'm darting around it. It's kind of, I think people who approach a sound design approach, people who understand that it's not just music that's like, I can almost hear like a drone in an aeroplane going above me, and to me that's musical. I feel like I feel like people who've like, if you've had that, like you say, you're trying to work out intervals from listening to something. You're kind of actually hearing the world, like, so your soundtrack, so a lot of people, when they hear some of my stuff, they're like, I don't understand how have you done that? It sounds, what's going on with it? It's like, because you've crafted sound, right? It's sound design. And I find that a lot of people who are kind of like classically trained or have gone through that real theory, play these pieces. Not all the time, but sometimes they struggle with that kind of like sound design, perhaps approach.
Right.
I don't know whether that's fair to say that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and like, it's funny too, like, because we're talking a lot about music theory, but just keyboard synthesis is like an entire topic, right? And how deep that goes. And I have a lot of friends here in Austin, they're just hardcore into synths, and always, that sound, the synthesizer sound obviously had a big comeback of recent with like synthwave genre, and but that's another fascinating part of music too, and film score design. Everything is just keyboard synthesis. And I did study a class at the community college here in Austin that was just keyboard synthesis, and wow, it was fascinating.
I was playing around with that Behringer, because Behringer have gone crazy with their synths, and it was the Behringer Cat synth, which kind of focuses on the more sort of West Coast synthesis than your Moog and that sort of thing. But I was doing the same thing. It's like, I'm hitting middle A. I'm like, okay, that's 440. So then I'm tuning my oscillators and tuning my filters to try and get, okay, I'm sort of there. I'm sort of middle A now. So and then you start just having fun, and you're just playing around with the pitch bend, to literally just and gliding between notes. And the Cat synthesizer didn't even have a keyboard plugged into it. So the only way that you're changing the pitch is literally by either using the filters, changing the fundamental on the oscillator, or you're pitch bending it. So I found that I started almost making a little bit of a composition just through doing those sorts of things, right? And then adding kind of LFOs to sort of throw in a bit of rhythmic content and all that sort of stuff. And that kind of sounds a bit like a helicopter. Okay, cool. I might sample that. So it's kind of coming at this whole, you're not really making music, but you kind of are. You are, because you're making sounds and you're contextualizing them within a scale because it sounds musical.
Sure.
It's quite an interesting world, the world of synthesis. It's very much, it does follow exactly the same laws as the hertz on the piano bed, but I don't know, you're sitting there with
have you ever looked up too, like, this was a more recent discovery to me. I mean, obviously, just for me seeing it visually, but have you ever looked and seen, like, there's charts out there too that's like every pitch, right, and every note on the piano has a certain hertz value.
100%.
C is like, what is it? Is that the one that's like 440? I don't know.
440 is A.
It's A.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it gets, it's more recent study. I don't want to go off because I'll sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But the perfect fourths and perfect fifths, and all that has to do with actual mathematical, the actual hertz that it is, and the relationship of that mathematic. It's too deep for me, right?
It's Pythagoras, my friend. Pythagoras.
Here we go.
It was literally Pythagoras who, he invented the harmonic series. He realized that a piece of string and octaves, and it's Pythagoras. It goes back. The ancient Greeks had this down, man. Like it goes back a long, long way, and that. But it is 100%. Of course, it's maths. It's all looking at the fundamental, and you've got all your overtones and your nodes. How you create harmonics, and it's that sort of like, if you gave me a cello, I'd be trying to get the overtones and the harmonics, because that's the way my brain is just wired. I'd be interested to get those overtones, and like, how do I get harmonics on this thing, one of the guys at the uni was doing it. He's there with his cello, and I'm like, how have you done that? Show me. I want to do this kind of thing. It really, so it's one of those things. It's like, I think the modern world has moved us. I think you either intuitively understand music theory or you don't. is what I'm trying to say. Like, and as time's progressing, like you said, with your kind of like the sort of garage band style where no one knows what they're doing, or the punks just learning 3 chords and off they go. You know, which is a whole thing, a whole style of music starting just out like we're just gonna learn 3 chords, right? You know, and I think is it Clapton? He's like learn 5 chords and don't bother anymore. Was it Clapton who said that? I could be totally wrong in my memory there. But you know, it's kind of I think the great thing about the world is that you have the opportunity to, like, you know, I'm 34 now, right? And now I want to really sit down and get back to my studies from sort of 10, 12 years ago and pick up the page again. And I will.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, I tell even the students I teach, it's like, you're going to forever be, if you want to do music, you're going to forever be learning. Like, I tell
never going to
stop. I'm studying right now something, just so you know, I'm always interested. But again, that goes into having fun. It's an interest. Music is it's so fun to me that it is super interesting. So it could be the end of the night, and then I'll be, I want to learn some more modular synthesis, whatever, or learn a different type of mixing technique or an idea, or whatever. It's like you should forever be learning if you really do, or if you're in this industry and you love it, right?
I agree, man. I agree. So coming back to your kind of your 4-track to your door, you know, do you still kind of, did you find it similar to me? You got straight back in, or are you still playing with synths and the outboard?
So say that one more time.
So were you kind of similar to me, that when you kind of hit that digital world and you found Pro Tools, you kind of moved away a little bit from actual instruments or synthesizers? And
you know, like I have, like, I'm looking at above, I have an MPC 3000, which is a relic sampler that still works. Like, I can still I have some maintenance that needs to be done with it, but it's still
going,
functioning and working. But it's like, it just doesn't fit my workflow right now. Like, I'm not going to sell that thing because it's special to me and I've had it forever. But it's like, some of the older stuff I have does fit into the workflow of, like, our modern day workflow. But generally my approach with that too has been grabbing a piece of gear, bringing it out right here, and setting it on a stand. And I'm looking up here and I have synthesizers that are on my wall, and I'll bring one out. And so I'm focused on just this one, and then I can just capture it however it is. Or if it's, I have my modular synth, which has just been fun. I've been getting into that a little later in my life, but it was just fun to try to build your own synth. That's what
100%
modular synthesis is, like, build your own synthesizer. But still, it's fascinating to get that thing when I'm making crappy sounds out of it. But it's like, I can still capture, because I don't know what I'm doing quite yet. I can capture it into Ableton, and it can still sound really cool. And I can use that in a way with actual production of virtual instrument production. But I think there's a fun, I don't know if I'm answering the question right, but it's like, I think there's a fun mixture of everything. That's how I have fun, is mixing a hybrid of digital and analog equipment. And it's all being brought in digitally. It all becomes digital at whatever point, right? But
it's how you create those. I mean, there's definitely we were AB in a couple of synths the other day, and if you get the old, like, the Moog Mother or something like that.
Oh man,
the tones are so rich, man. They're so rich out there.
Like, that's the stuff, because I really like that dark synth stuff.
100. You can't.
So into, like, people who are using the.
It's so cool.
Stuff, but I'm all like, whoa! I just don't. I know.
Well, I think I'm just going to do it, man. I think because
trigger, man. Let's get it going. Let's
do it. I mean, I think it's like, because
down, man. We could make some pretty crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to get. It's been on my buy list for Yonks. Is the Korg Minilog. I think I'm going to get the Minilog, and I think I might pick up some of the Behringer stuff, because it's pretty cool, man. They're making some really cool synths, and they're not that expensive.
I have a Minilog, so I do have a Minilog.
How did you rate it? Do you like
mono. It's mono. That's the only, just so you know, it is polyphony, but it is a mono synth. Because I kind of think of in terms like that, if it were mono, you could do some really cool low-end bass stuff, because I generally like we've talked about that, but it's like, I like my bass stuff to
big drones and yeah.
even kick drums mono. But yeah, it's cool. I just have fun. I'm just having fun with it, from more like design standpoint. And then there's certain boards I have that aren't analog. Like I have a lot of old Ensoniq stuff. I always loved Ensoniq sounds. But I would say those are more for kind of surfing through these old presets that were on board those, So there's certain stuff I played with through time that's like, am I really just navigating through the presets, or am I using this to try to create something and make like my own sound or whatever?
100% hear you. And that's what I really liked about that Behringer cat. You couldn't, you had to, you had nothing, man. You had to create.
The Moog mother, and then was it drummer from another mother, DFAM or whatever? Have you heard of that one?
I have, yeah, but what?
DFAM. Check that one out.
I'm gonna have to look at that as well. I'm gonna have to look at that.
I've watched some videos on it. I've seen some people do some insane stuff with that. It's like, I think, to me, it's like these drum patterns that sound so rich, but it's like white noise and like different types.
Yeah, 100%. But this is the other thing I think, that because I know me and you both moved to like a MacBook, right, as our main machine, right? And I'm really interested with that because it's kind of, while I still like this desk and sitting at a workstation with a MIDI controller plugged into it, I think when I move again, like I kind of almost want to put my analog stuff almost just in the front room, right? Because I can just get a Focusrite or whatever, or even the Audient ID4 is like 120 quid, man. Just plug something in, then you can play in your performance or muck around with a synthesizer. Then you can go back into your.
See, and some people, there's like, some people, and what you're saying, like just the setup's always key, right? It's like some people like to have all their stuff set up to where they can just turn something on and it's routed in and it's ready to go, right? I found that I've even tried, because I used to have a synthesizer rack, one of the 5-tier racks, right? And I was doing that for a little bit, and I found for me, it's just better to get one thing out and focus on it, right? And if it's like for a month or for a project, it's like, I'm going to use this piece of gear and see what I can create for this project, right? And then
I think you're right, because I think I was looking at the Trevor Morris's studio, man, and the guy's got like all these sims just on the side, like, and they're all rooted in to go, and I'm like, how are you getting any work done? I just the
it's
guys.
What we're talking about, where it's too much to think about. Like, well, it's like, where do I go? It's so like,
and I think that's the problem. I've found it's been strange. It's been a strange experience because I've never been a laptop producer. I've always been sitting at a workstation. Right. And since getting that MacBook and since getting this teaching gig and traveling and staying in hotels and being on the train and being in coffee shops, and I'm finding that I'm recording in chords using the damn using the MacBook keyboard, Control K and Logic or whatever. Yeah, man, a keyboard
keys, just making some,
and suddenly it's kind of just, in a way, it's quite freeing, and I thought, well, when I get this play, obviously I'm moving again, but like I thought, well, why have everything? Why not have almost like a mix master, perhaps compositional room, but then have all the kind of analog stuff plugged into a mixer? And I have that. So maybe I start say for this for our project, maybe I map out all the drums in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever else, and have the track there. But then when it comes to designing the kind of pads or designing kind of like a synth pulse, let's go into the other room. Change the lighting up, a glass of wine, right? Get the synthesizer. Get the synthesizer out. You know what I'm saying? Get the synthesizer out. Play the track, loop it, and then record a performance in. And it's straight away, it's changed your workflow, right?
And that sounds fun too. I mean, that's like, hey, that's what I want to do tonight. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like
that's the thing, that's the thing, and have that separate area, like with that digital piano, right? That I want to get, have that area, sit there and start learning properly to play again. Because like I say, we can all play. Anyone doing music production can play. They can play keys, right? They can go through some chords. They can play some melodies. We play, but how often do you find that you play in your initial ideas, and you're like, that sounds really cool, that's nice, but then you're just there with the mouse, right? You're moving your notes, you're changing your velocity, you're copying and pasting, you're reorganizing your notes around there.
It's funny because, speaking on that, it's like I have like so many. I'm teaching. It's college level students. It's a associate's degree path. It's a technical school, trade school, but they are, most of them are some of them come from some pretty serious like jazz backgrounds or what have you, but some of them have never played piano at all. But they're still writing. They've written tons of music, so that was kind of eye-opening to me because it was so different of a path, right? It's like they had written all this music by just writing the actual or experimenting with the notes inside whatever DAW, right?
Interesting.
And it was just a different approach. But
That's really interesting.
I always still try to encourage those students to like, learn the keys and learn the piano as one instrument. If you can just find one instrument, try to learn that as a producer, beat maker, or whatever you're going for, and that side of it, music production or composer. Learn the keys so you can utilize it too. I mean, I imagine there's probably composers out there on films that don't even know how to play a piano.
Oh, there will be. Yeah, there will be. But that's what I'm saying. That example you gave right there is perfect to kind of sum up what I'm saying. It's like the technology is changing the way we're approaching music. We're applying the term composer to say someone who can't play an instrument or doesn't really know how to read the sheet, right? Well, that would be unheard of even 20, 30 years ago. And I think take Hans Zimmer as a prime example. Him going out on stage and playing the guitar and playing the piano and stuff. This is stuff he's learned over time. There's no way that he would have understood that sheet. He left piano. He said in many interviews that he just didn't want to do formal piano teaching. So it's like there's so many different ways of sort of approaching composition, to the point you've even just said there that kids are, perhaps pressing a key in Logic or whatever. Okay, D sharp.
A piano roll.
Yeah, using the piano roll, but then actually putting it on manuscript, saying writing you a piece of music. So they understand all the theory and they can hear perhaps the note interval, and they Adrian, I composed the piece, and you're like, can you play it to me? And no. I
should stress is, some of it's just outstanding sounding.
Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it is. But always it's just more fun. Like even us thinking about our projects and how, what you're saying, that just sounds fun. And it's like, that is, to me, if I were just consumed inside just the box, that doesn't sound as fun. It's like, I want to get away from it. I think the box is great, right? But I feel like I've been sitting at this desk for 10 years, and it's like, I kind of just want to just step away from this desk. And get out into another room, but then come back here and be like, right, what did I record? Yep. And even if it's like, you delete 50% of it, at least there's a performance you've actually properly played now and brought in to your track, and you've moved forward, man. So I feel like this is a really, I know you've got to jump into a session in a bit, man. So I know I'm going to lose you very, very soon, but I feel like this is like the start of a very interesting conversation which we can pick up on in future episodes. We're gonna have to, I don't know, maybe it'll be a whole other podcast.
You get an hour of my scattered brain. That's what happens when I'm freestyling. It's all over the place. Talk about
I love it, man. I love it. So you're saying, so let's to contextualize it in, man. You're like me, you're in the door, you've got your simps, and your approach, as you're saying, is to grab one of those bad boys down and put it on your music stand. Right, I'm playing with you for a month or for this project, yeah?
Yeah, and that's just kind of what it is right now. Like I said, my learning, as I said, I'll always be learning something, right? That's with the modular synth stuff really is my main, what I'm interested in learning right now, more and more, and consuming as much knowledge as I can on that. As far as like the last film I did, that was the approach with that. I would just grab a board, set it down, and it's a hybrid of virtual instruments and then a few of like my main sounds or whatever I wanted them coming from a board. And it's kind of funny because it's like, if the board's actually a digital board, which I have several digital ones, it's like, it seems a bit like, well, why are you basically taking your own sample of a digital board and bringing it into the session? But it still sounds different to me. Yeah. It's also just the method of it's fun, and it does sound different than just using Arturia synth from
whichever pack that they do. But no,
but
I agree because it's like, you know, I remember us helping you with that mix, giving you some tips on where we having a conversation around it, and I remember that. I remember it being kind of like, you know, the textures that Adrian's created here, you know, are working really well, you know, and it's like then you bring in some strings, you know, but I feel because you've almost got there, I don't know whether it's just, I think part of it is the richness from the board. It's gone through electronics, it's come into the computer.
That's true. Yeah.
But I think there's definitely an air of performance which you can just, as a human being, can just feel that someone played that different to triggering a note. There's something about it.
Totally. And that's how, you know, and because that, I guess that is the important, I'm actually, even if it's for a film, I'm actually not recording my note on, note off. So I'm not tracking any MIDI data. I'm just recording audio. So it is like, there it is. Now manipulate the audio, right? We can stretch it, we can cut it, we can still manipulate that audio a bit, but it's something too. It's just, that's a different workflow, right? It's like capture this performance as audio. It's not MIDI. And even in our stuff where we're working in the box more and playing with these instruments, the, you know, MIDI virtual instruments, we're still, our process, right? We're like turning them into audio, mainly for our workflow, what we need to, right? But then now that it's audio, you have a different way to manipulate the sound.
100%. And I find when I get the sessions, it's like, because you're big, yeah, I don't know. It definitely is a different way of working when I'm adding parts to yours. I think that's what made me think about this. You know, like I say, that's what got me thinking this is playing around with those synths up at the university and being like, right, I'm buying all of these.
You'll have synths
we got
modulars
and all sorts, man. You know, so I'm gonna
be
borrowing.
I'm gonna be one home. Can you borrow?
I'm gonna be doing some learning over the summer, kind of thing. You know, so the university is great. There's some excellent equipment there. I can't stress it enough.
That's
you know,
awesome.
You know, so it's kind of almost taken me back to. Well, I just feel like I'm really learning again. You know, and I'm like, wow, these are perhaps gaps, or, you know, where the door I feel will almost become a constraint. I'm now sort of smashing those walls down and being like, right, well, I'm going to come out of the box for a while, and then I'm still going to, you know, if I'm suddenly playing the piano because I'm going through and I come up with something, I will 100% bring my laptop in and start recording it. You know, I'm probably going to end up with patch bays and because my whole flat's going to be, you know, like it's
patch bays. If you have a lot of hardware, are smart. You know,
100%, 100%.
I wouldn't necessarily want to be patching all my hardware up every time to use that for what it is, but.
It's gonna be a thing, man. You know, it's gonna 100% be a thing, dude. To be a thing. Well, look, man, I know we got a last final few minutes, man. We are gonna continue this, right? We are, because I feel like we've just scratched the surface of it, man. Where can folks find you, man? If they want to check out some of your stuff or want to follow you, where can they get you at? I know
right now, I guess it probably looks like I'm being over dramatic by having two different artist names that are both my actual real name. So I have music that is on Spotify that's just Adrian Croom, and then my newer stuff with featuring vocalists that I work with, kind of darkwave type cinematic. I like to say it lives in somewhere in the Bjork type eclectic electronic realm, but that's just under my last name. So it's just Croom, and that's on Spotify, and then. Yeah, YouTube. I'm definitely on all the socials. Croom Music though is what. So that's the website, croommusic.com. Croom Music, Instagram, Croom Music, YouTube. I tried to purposely have all that the same.
Excellent. Well, look, man, we'll pick up again. You know, it's just, this is the music world, man. People are doing busy things. Adrian's got to jump off. We'll be back.
We're gonna be finished with this project. Next time we're gonna be telling everybody.
Next time we'll be doing that. 100%. Yeah, well, yeah, we will. That's the whole other thing. You know, to be bragging about the music placements. Yeah, you know, hell, maybe we'll be doing it in person in Austin. You know.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Wicked, man. Well, look, part one. I'll see you again for part two. But yeah, good seeing you, mate. You look after yourself, yeah?
Yeah, you too. Enjoy moving in the new place, man. I'll talk to you soon, okay, bud?
Talk to you very soon, man, yeah? Take care, dude. Thanks for coming on, man. Bye-bye.